Very good morning, everyone. Very good morning, everyone. And I am pleased to have all of you on board. I can see great speakers representing different geographies, different background, and I'm extremely excited to have this conversation with all of you. My name is Santosh Kotnis, based out in India. I'm part of Spring Up Capital team. Spring Up Capital team and F50, we are trying to do collaboration in helping the startups across India, Europe, and in the US. The whole idea of this partnership is to work together with both Spring Up Capital and F50 would work together in helping the startups to identify their true potential and help them in their investor journey. And then also, most importantly, provide the required mentorship and the hand-holding in different phases of the startup journey. So we are quite excited as a team because we see there is a great potential to collaborate. We are coming up with some strong areas from our side, and F50 comes with certain strong areas. So we are quite excited as a team to collaborate with the F50 and then work towards more collaborative or building a collaborative ecosystem across the globe. The opportunities are limitless because in every country, especially in this current time, the technology is taking a lot of importance. There are a lot of fantastic technology companies coming up, and then that's the reason for the excitement for sure. And then we all are getting a lot of opportunities in working with different startups, spectacular companies, great founder stories, and then obviously significant exit stories as well, where everybody was successful by another day. So quite excited about this chat, and if I could request all the panelists for a quick round of introduction. You may want to take 30 seconds to introduce yourself, and then that would be a good segue for our discussion for next 45-50 minutes. So I will go last. Maybe David, you may want to start with your introduction, and then we can take it from there.
Sure. My name is David Chao. I'm a managing partner of F50. I just want to come here to welcome all of you to this F50 Global Capital Summit. For the very first time, we are hosted in Austin, Texas. So I hope many of you can visit Austin next 1 year or 2 years. We are based in Austin and the Silicon Valley. So we want to connect the global startup ecosystems from India and from all over the place with Silicon Valley and Austin for the next many years. And you guys have an amazing speaker panel today. I hope you all enjoy. Thank you.
Okay, I'll go next. I'm Pawan Kumar, founder of 3PM Ventures. We are a very early stage startup investing company. We fund into pre-seed tech founder companies based out of India, UK, and USA. We are also now exploring options in Africa. We primarily focus on B2B SaaS platforms and deep tech. And we look at founders who come with strong backgrounds and domain experience and help them to excel in their journey. Thank you. Dr. Asif?
I wasn't. Hi, good afternoon, good morning, namaste to those in India. Professor Asif Ahmed, I'm chairman and founder of Mirzan Therapeutics, whose mission is to make preeclampsia history within this decade. And I'm also the founder of most socially inclusive medical school in the UK and the senior advisor to the president of the University of Southampton.
Matt?
Hi everyone, this is Murtuza Matt Haryanawala, and I'm based out of San Francisco. I've also been in India for the last 10 years working with startups at startup.net. We actually partnered for one of our startups with Sachin Tendulkar to launch, cricket academies across India for Bayside Sports. But more than that, it's an exciting space right now. I also am a director at Accelerate, and where we help B2B startups launch in the US and globally. So yeah, looking forward to an exciting panel and learning, as well as seeing if we can help startups in India.
Okay, Dr. Divya.
Hello, good evening, everyone, and good morning to the other parts of the world. I'm Dr. Divya Jetli, and I'm the founder and managing director of Forethought Corporate Communications and the Advanced Learning Institute. I represent the service sector, of course, and very recently I turned a small angel. This is my third company with 2 successful exits, and I have developed, mentored, and coached many startups into going on a path of sustainability and achieving scalable futures with the investors. So I'm sort of understanding both sides of the story, and I strictly and firmly believe that if you want to run fast, you run alone, and if you want to run far, you run together.
Hardeep. You're mute, Hardeep.
You are on mute, Hardeep. You are on mute.
My apologies. Someone had to do that today. Good afternoon and good morning, everyone. My name is Hardeep, and I am the founder of Kaleidoscope Investments. Kaleidoscope Investments is a company that invests in disabled people that have great business ideas. I set up the company about 6-7 years ago after the birth of my little boy over there, Ishin, who was born with a severe disability. And it really opened my eyes to the world of disabled people and a lot of the challenges they face. And so we founded Kaleidoscope to specifically help people with disabilities, not just seed fund their ideas, but actually help them to grow those businesses and eventually sell them as well. So that's what Kaleidoscope is.
Thank you. Srinath?
Yeah, hi all. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you. Srinath Birur here from India. I wear 2 hats. One, I've been associated with the Excellence of Technologies as a Chief Innovation Evangelist, been evangelizing innovation and entrepreneurship programs across Africa, UAE, and Australia market. Also, in somewhere in 2017-18, actually, I've small, as Dr. Divya told, I was an angel investor for 2 in startups, actually, which is getting matured by next year. And second, I'm a partner with my colleague, Santosh, who is our panel member with the Spring Up Capital. That's my introduction. Thank you all. Thanks, Pawan and David.
Yeah, okay. I will go last. My name is Santosh Kotnes. I am one of the founding team members in Spring Up Capital. Typical IT services guy, been working in Europe and US. Moved into being an entrepreneur, a technology entrepreneur by myself before co-founding Spring Up Capital along with a few like-minded people like Srinath. So I have done an angel investment in some companies, small again, but we are trying to work together in Spring Up Capital to give a platform to the technology entrepreneurs to accelerate their growth and help them scale in the global scale. So that's about my introduction. But as a panel, one of your panel team member, I think it's exciting to have such a vast and variety experience across different geographies. We have Dr. Asif from one area, Hardeep from different background, Matt Murtuza comes from more of India and Silicon Valley story, Pawan similarly US and then India story. And then Srinath comes with investment and corporate and startup. And then, of course, we have Divya, who is more of a mentoring and then being an angel investor and then working with startups. So it will be an exciting thing for sure. But if I can open up a discussion with, if we can take, again, a couple of minutes to talk about what are the opportunities you feel in the global scenario for the startups now. And obviously, I think we all are agreeing that the startup ecosystem is been changing. Earlier, it started off with the Silicon Valley. Now, every part of the world is catching up. Would like to know, for the benefit of our viewers, that what you think personally from growing ecosystem of startups. Maybe we may want to start with Dr. Asif, and then we can go in the same order.
Sure. Thank you very much for that question. I would start by first saying that I believe startups are the backbone of modern economy. Just like in the 20th and the 19th century, the corner shop was the backbone of UK economy. So there is a real emphasis for us to communicate that with the political elite of our countries. That's the first thing to say. Second thing I would say, in terms of startups should think globally, not local. You might be based in one place, but you got to start thinking globally, because the pain point, if you're trying to solve a problem for your country, those people across the planet have the same problem then. If they do, then you need to have a strategy that is global. And so in that sense, then, and the third bit is to think that it's not all about real estate these days. You've got to be on the internet. You've got to be visible. So those are the three things I think I would say are really important. One, to articulate the message that the employment is coming, majority for people, it's going to come from startups and SMEs. So the government and local politician needs to take action. Second is to think for the startup themselves, to think of the pain point. What are you solving? We're solving, no woman should die in childbirth. And we're going to make that preventable by the end of this decade. That's based, and it's based on, as Pravin was saying, it's based on solid science, IP that is globally patented. So, and the third thing, as I said, you might be doing a great thing, but no one knows about it. So you've got to be, and use the internet, use the connections, take the opportunities and ask for help. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I think Dr. Asif is making very interesting point of having a great idea and then making our presence felt. And plus also, he is emphasizing the fact that the startups are now going to create the jobs. Pawan, if I could pick up your brain on the same topic, I mean, what you feel the opportunities or a changing landscape of the startups?
Yeah, I think just to add to what Dr. Asif said, one good thing of COVID, obviously we had huge negative impact globally, but one good thing is the entire process of this startup investing, everything has gone online. And now we found a new business model, around VCs or even other angel investing, without really meeting the founders or doing face-to-face meetings and all that. And also what we realized is there is huge innovation happening globally. It's no more a proprietary thing happening out of Silicon Valley. We were able to see huge pockets of innovations, be it Africa, India, China, Middle East, including. So innovation has become visible and global. And now with this, what we realize is also the most established logistics, supply chains, everything were broken during COVID. And if you see, many a times, it is only the startups which were trying to help and sustain economies globally. So this brings huge opportunities for founders to have ambition to get into any of these markets. Obviously, they don't have the strength like established companies in terms of financials or, the manpower or anything. The best option they should always explore, just to extend what Dr. Asif said, is to look for collaborations, partnerships. You really need not be physically present in any country. Your product, service, anything can really go global if you're smart enough to, have the right partnerships and collaborations with like-minded entrepreneurs, like-minded companies, startups which are operating in those geographies. Because eventually the success of a startup just does not mean a business model or a product or service. It is also about cultural alignment. And the best way to culturally align is to have a local entrepreneur or local startup partnering or collaborating with you, so that you make it a pretty easy and faster move into those markets.
Yeah, so that's a very powerful message. But certainly, I think, Pawan, you made an interesting point that it's no more a Silicon Valley focused ecosystem. So it's catching up in all part of the world. I think that's I would like to take a Silicon Valley approach, or rather Silicon Valley view from Matt on that perspective. But before we do that, I mean, if I can request Divya to talk about an Indian ecosystem perspective, how you think the startup is maturing here, and then I think with that perspective we can go to Matt and then see his perspective from Silicon Valley point of view.
Wow, thank you for bringing me in, Santosh. And I'm glad you asked me this question, because obviously the Indian ecosystem, as we are seeing from the last year, wow, I think with the startup ecosystem booming and till the birth of many, many startup unicorns till April end this year, I think the momentum is on a roll in India. We are thriving in terms of startup ecosystem. And I would say that the growth strategy isn't going to lose its charm anytime soon. I think rather we are on the way of becoming a magnum opus. I mean, I have very big people here on the panel, and I hope they agree with me when I'm calling that out with respect to the Indian startup landscape. I have always believed prior to the pandemic days that there are three pillars of any startup or any entrepreneur. And one is the human capital, social capital, and the financial capital. Now, interestingly, pandemic has acted as a catalyst and shifted the paradigm, because I'm going to call this the decade of transformation. So the financial capital has sort of, in my opinion rather, has actually pivoted to giving the most importance to risk capital. It's not just about money anymore. And then, of course, social capital, like I had fellow panelists talk about it, that it is all about your digital legacy now. What is the perception value that you are creating? Because that is going to help you in your journey and creating inflection milestones. And of course, human capital. I'm a huge proponent of leadership skills, but I think connected thinking based in a very deep-rooted cognitive behavior psychology, but needs to be integrated in your startup ecosystem, is the key to success. I hope that gives a certain perspective.
No, certainly, it certainly does. And I think you brought in the human capital angle, and I think which is an important aspect of any startup or building the team, because that plays a key role. But having said that, Matt, I'd like to know your perspective, because you are sitting right there in the Silicon Valley. You also understand the Indian startup ecosystem. So would like to know more about your perspective, than what Silicon Valley thinks. Of course, Silicon Valley has been ahead of all the ecosystems put together. But what would be your take from the opportunities and growth aspects perspective?
So yeah, thanks. Silicon Valley is coming to terms with the fact that they are no longer the leaders. Let's put it that way, right? So to agree with all of you, there are ecosystems coming up, right? And we're just trying to reinvent, just like every time. Silicon Valley does that very well. We reinvent ourselves, we are rethinking. So there are themes, but just last year, there were more than 1,000 micro VCs just in the Valley, new micro VCs. So there's new money the traditional model of VC is changing. The big firms, they're still going to be the top 10 percentile VC firms like Sequoia and all of them, right? But the VC is changing, and the reason I say it is because when the nature of money changes, it helps change the nature of entrepreneurship, right? So there is more of, like Divya rightly mentioned, there is more risk capital across the world. Earlier, like almost 10 years ago, when I was doing a startup in India, there was no risk capital. We had done a launch in India for a go-to-market for a Wi-Fi startup. There was no risk capital. All the VCs were extended arms of Silicon Valley VCs. But now, the VCs in India, there is local money in India, which is seeding local entrepreneurship, not just India, across the world. And that is the rise of the micro VCs. That is a big change, both in Silicon Valley, and that is permeating across the world. In terms of themes, I love the way some of the ecosystems in India are developing, like the SaaS ecosystem, especially out of Chennai and Bangalore. Bangalore has been the leader in terms of the whole movement from SaaS as well as other startups. But Chennai is developing a niche or developing a real mind share for good SaaS startups coming out of there. Similarly, Pune had the opportunity, and still does, for service-based startups to kind of go create a paradigm around that, right? So there are ecosystems which are maturing based on the core human capital strength of each area in India, or each region in India. But all of that feeds into the larger picture that there is opportunity to scale up. Now where Silicon Valley scores over most of the ecosystems is the diversity that it brings. So, I can be here and say, this is my home. David can be here, Pawan can be here, and all of us can be here and say, this, I am going to go market here. You have the connects for the decision making of people are right here, and they're connected across to different points in the world. So that's where Silicon Valley really scores. That's what is happening even in terms of the capital right now. The innovation that people are focused on right now in Silicon Valley, what I see is enabling other ecosystems, but through Silicon Valley. So I'm seeing that theme come across. So, LA is developing, New York is developing as an ecosystem for startups, but they all have a connect with Silicon Valley. Some connect with Silicon Valley to develop that. Just like India, earlier they had venture arms in India of Silicon Valley startup, of venture firms, but now Sequoia in India is doing excellent work, right from ground up. Most of the high AVCs have gone down to seed, and they're diving deeper into the ecosystem. Similarly, those playbooks and those patterns have been followed across different ecosystems. And I think Silicon Valley, the themes here are AI, ML, obviously those you have heard of, but SaaS is big. And yeah, I mean, we can talk more about it, but that's my view.
Yeah. So I think you are making a very interesting point here, Matt, because I think you gave a very balanced view between what is happening in India and then rest part of the world. But also it's equally important to get an investor perspective. So if I could request Hardeep to come with his views, that what he thinks is how the global ecosystem is changing, and then how all these systems, all the ecosystems, the global ecosystems are playing together in order to build a better world for the startups. Hardeep, if you could get your views, please.
Sure. Well, first of all, very interesting perspectives across the board, and I agree with everything that's been said so far. My focus is disability, Santosh. So if you don't mind, I'll come at it from the disability angle. So there are, if you look at the world population today, there are just under 8 billion people in the world today, and there are just under 2 billion people that have some form of disability globally. Okay, so the first thing is the disability marketplace is monumental. It's exceptionally large. The second really important point is the spending power of the disability community globally is $13 trillion per year. Okay, that's $13 trillion per year. So the disabled community worldwide have that amount of money to spend on products and services. Now, it's no great secret that there are many, many needs of the disabled community in terms of products and services that are not being fulfilled at the moment. So what I've witnessed in the last 7 years that I've been involved in disabled entrepreneurship is that there is a real move towards diversity investing, technology investing in solutions for accessibility for the disability community. So that's one big theme, right? Technology, venture capital, accessibility. Now, that's very needed because obviously the disabled community need to have a way to communicate with people that's easy for them to be able to, bring their points of view across. The second biggest issue is products. Okay, so for the disabled community that are wheelchair users, that are crutch users, that actually have visual impairments, hearing impairments, there are really simple products and services that have got nothing to do with technology that they really need. And what we see a huge move towards companies that are beginning to develop products and services for the disabled community. A very big thing I often see as an investor in this community is adaptable fashion, for instance, right? So you'll see recently Nike launched a shoe that was a trainer that was sort of meant to be more of an accessible shoe that was easier for people with disabilities to put on. So I think I'm a massive supporter in looking out for startups that are in the space of disability particularly, but also diversity. Okay, so I think diversity post-COVID, Pavan, you raised a very, very good point about the impact of COVID that it's had. I think COVID has disabled the majority of people in the world. For a period of time, we were all stuck indoors. We couldn't do anything, right? Suddenly working from home or flexible working becomes okay in the last 1 year, whereas in the previous 2 decades, we'd been challenging it, right? So in a similar way, people have understood disability, they've understood diversity. There's a very big initiative called the Valuable 500, which is getting large employers to think more about diversity now. So I think the big opportunity for me in entrepreneurship is all about diversity right now. Disability, and whether it's gender or whether it's BAME, this is a marketplace that really needs to be looked at. And the ideal is we don't need to be thinking about diverse strategies, but the reality is we're not in a world where inclusion is there yet. And disability, and particularly mentoring when it comes to startups, is critical. So that would be my view on the themes to look out for. And just on the point of India, I'm very proud to be an Indian. I was very proud to be at the National Ability Summit back last year. That's where I had the great privilege of meeting Pavan and the opportunity to come today. And I think Indian innovation and startups is fantastic. It's fabulous. And yes, there are micro startups that are doing really well, but there are the early VC, the early companies and the growth companies that are also doing really well. So I think India is definitely a market to be watching over the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah. Hardeep, thank you so much for your views. Diversity is certainly a very valid point you are making, and then quite exciting to know that you believe in Indian story as well. But I think a very interesting perspective, I think we'd like to come to Srinath, because Srinath plays multiple hats. I mean, he's a corporate representation of a corporate for sure, and then he's very active into the Indian government startup ecosystem, like Niti Aayog and all. And then of course he's mentoring few startups, angel investors, some startup, and then now working along with us in Spring Up Capital. Srinath, if I can ask the same question to you, then what you think about the opportunities and the maturity of the global ecosystem of startups?
Yeah, thanks, Santosh. And I think what I wanted to share, actually, most of the points have been shared by Dr. Asif, Pavan, and Dr. Divya, and Matt also in the last. They have been exceptionally, shared, great insights. Like, Pavan said, global should look at the startup. The startup should look at the global perspectives. But I feel actually startup has matured very well in the last decade, and especially in the last 16 months. I think there is, as Pavan told, I just watched that there's a huge innovation has happened. And I have been part of the Niti Aayog system, actually, looking at those innovation system and the establishment of the innovations across the young minds and young startups. That has been huge, actually. And the VCs have become, more, traditional and more also modernized. In fact, talking with the startups, looking at the technology side, looking at the SaaS and the platform side, absolutely there is a significant change in the startup culture. Startup look actually now 100% it has changed. I have been interacting with a couple of African investors because of my other association for many years. They have been really looking at India now. They want to be in India's growth story. Okay, up to 2018, India was allowing free actually for some of the African business people and other institutions to come to India. But definitely, Santosh, this perspective has completely 360-degree now. And government's contribution has become very, very large and huge. And the startups have become more thinking now that it's not only in India that we have to go outside. And it's not that actually if we go outside, the outsiders are coming inside, actually, like the investors. It could be other startups, a different ecosystem. There are some countries which I'm talking, they have not been visible in terms of what they do, which we were not knowing. They have been in the India's ecosystem. Like, a couple of years back, I was in Belarus for a year, Minsk country. I used to be associated with the IMA Guru there and work with the repo. They have been now very strong, actually, India. They have been started coming together now here because after their spin-off from Russian, this one. So I mean to say, our startup has grown very large, very, very named and significant. And especially what one of our other speakers the other day when he was talking, actually, the Bay Areas have been looking at India because, there is a turn actually now. So that's what I think, Santosh.
That's very powerful message, Srinath. India is a turn. But we'll come back to with the very specific questions with all the panels. But I think I also wanted to appreciate and understand a point that all the entrepreneurs need a lot of motivation, a lot of success stories to rely upon, so that, because entrepreneurial journey is like one fine day I feel like I'm top of the Everest, and the second day I will feel that why on this earth I'm doing this, right? So this is a cyclic thing, day in and day out. So I wanted to pick up Dr. Asif's brain, because your story as an entrepreneur is been a true inspiration for all of us. So if you could share about your story as an entrepreneur, I'm sure it's going to be extremely motivating for the rest of the startup owners.
So can I first comment on what Hardeep said and Divya said? What Divya said, it really resonated with me. And I wanted to say that, and actually on my LinkedIn, I just put it only just a few days, I was just looking it up. Better future is created when we collaborate, when collaboration is accelerated. And that's what Pavan was talking about, that COVID has shown that when we come together and collaborate, we make it. And really what Hardeep was, Hardeep, if I'm correct, pronounced it right, I hope, said, my wife always complains to me that how can you be Indian and you can't pronounce Indian names properly? So I apologize to everyone. I have dyslexia, and you're talking about disability. I'm deaf in 1 year. I have severe ADHD, and I have dyslexia. So first thing I want to say to people that if I can do whatever I've done, you can do everything you want to do. So just don't take no for it. And going back to what you said about, entrepreneurial journey. So I've done two types of entrepreneurship. One is the Mirzam, which is a company. But before that, entrepreneur, I wanted to create a medical school that was most socially inclusive for whose kids who went to it, not my type of kids, but kids whose parents haven't been to university, whose household income is less than 35K, who required free school meal. And then international students who had capacity and capability but couldn't come here. So because we have a cap. So I wanted to break that barrier, and we've done it, and it's behind me now. But I'll talk to you about 5 P's of my life, what I call my 5 P's of life. First 2 were given to me by the Nobel Prize winner, Richard Ernst. He and I were having tea back in 2004. And I just finished a book on poetry, and he's a painter. And he was telling me when I'm going to do another poem. And I was saying, I don't have time for it. And he said, in our profession, if you're not thinking of Stockholm, don't do it. Obviously, he can think that because he's got the Nobel Prize. But he said, you will never even think of it, let alone get it or create something, if you don't have an additional passion. His was painting, and he was encouraging me to. So passion is not what you need, right? Passion is fleeting. Passion should be your additional passion. What I say, you need 3 more P's to that. You need purpose, because when you have purpose, you have focus. When you have focus, work isn't work. As Steve Jobs from Silicon Valley once said, the vision pulls you. But then you need persistence, because most people will put you down, pull you down, tell you can't be done. As I was told, how can you create a medical school? Birmingham is the only city outside London to have 2 medical schools, and they're separated by 200 years. And I did it when government was cutting down medical school numbers. So you can do it, but you need that persistence. But even with that persistence, when you will hit a brick wall, when you can't go through and you can't go around. That's when you need persuasion. When your vision becomes a common vision, and others come along who you don't even know, like I met Pavan, and I'm sitting here talking to you, who will pull you over that wall. And then because they buy into it. And I've seen it, because when I said we're going to make preeclampsia history within this decade, a few months ago, my student who finished her PhD came to my house with a card, and in the card, when I opened it with some present, but the card was the best present, because it said, let's make preeclampsia history. She's now working in the company as a chief, operations lead. So and empowering women, when you empower women, you power the world. So one of the things India needs to do, it needs to build inclusive startups, because that's the success of Silicon Valley, as we've just heard. So inclusivity is the key. And why am I senior advisor to Southampton? Because Southampton's strategy is all about global inclusivity, excellence and inclusivity. And so when you go to find, don't just look for investment, look for investment that supports that inclusivity. I hope that gives you some idea.
Yeah, it does. It's a quite inspirational story, and then a quick takeaway: 4 P's: purpose, passion, persistence, and pursuance. 5. Yeah. So that's a good motivation. I hope all of us take a cue out of that. But taking a segue to that question about pursuance, like say up to what level we need to do a pursuance, and then as I said, like it takes a big mental toll. And Divya, I know you are a coach.
I'll just say one more thing, if I may.
Yes.
I'll just say, you need to, your purpose has to be like an obsession. You must it's not about passion, but it's about the purpose has to be an obsession. And then you will not find that is the focus. And you need that to be successful, I think.
Yeah. So that's a great supplementary point as well. So Divya, segueing to that, what I wanted to ask is, since you are you play, I know for a fact that you play as a coach to certain startups and then founders. So taking this pursuance point of view, how important is this mental health for the startup owners, and then how to better equip in order to face all the realities what Dr. Asif was mentioning, because entrepreneurship is not a simple thing. I mean, it's like facing uncertainties day in and day out. Your views on that subject, please.
Sure. No, thank you for highlighting the mental health and the emotional wellness aspect of it, because what I'm seeing is that in the past, since 2020, as we are succeeding in the Indian startup ecosystem, there are research and statistics which are highlighting that we are having far more cases of mental, ill health and emotional unwellness, for lack of a better word. But I've always believed, Santosh, in this dictum, which I also highlighted at a recent event where I was invited with the New Zealand Business Council, and I said that crisis doesn't build character; it reveals it. I think pandemic, what it's done is put all of us. It didn't matter where, which age or which flow or which journey of startup or entrepreneurship you are in, but everybody from ground zero to the top level management, everybody went through this crisis. And because I deal with so many of them and do executive coaching, leadership coaching, it was amazing how everybody was responding to it and what sort of values and virtues were coming forward. Now, coming back to your question, you also touched upon some part of persuasion. If you want to achieve, you have to believe. If you want to sell, you have to be convinced what you're selling is worth selling. So persuasion is very synonymous to, I think, also the skill of negotiation. And I always highlight this with many founders and startups that, listen, when you go to VCs and you go to seed funding and Series A and Series B, and there's so many fancy terminologies coming straight from Silicon Valley, don't forget that they are going to be investing in you. So if you want to be persuasive, just be authentic, number one. Please be connected, number two. Don't be disconnected. Don't be inauthentic. If you are we're going to meet a VC or a PE investor with, a partner or business partners, make sure that you have absolutely transparent communication, because without communication, there is no way that you can persuade or convince anybody to invest, whether it's money, capital, sweat, it doesn't matter. And the third thing is commitment. Sadly, what I've seen, Santosh, many a times, startups want to grow faster. They want to take the highway. They want to just build it right, say the right jargons. But at the end of the day, not many of them are there, committed to the cause. So I have nothing against between, having a vision of selling your business and growing faster and starting another startup idea. I've done 2 exits myself, but lack of commitment and selling your business in order to, moving on to the next interesting idea, you need to find the right balance there. And I think these are a few things that I'll touch upon, which are very important, especially in the startup ecosystem, because Asif and Hardeep and Pavan and everybody is talking about it, because as a woman, I have found it much harder to come up with my 20 years of experience, because we are still struggling to be an inclusive environment. And I think inclusivity, unfortunately, in India, people only think it's about gender diversity. We are still at that very basic stage. We need to go, far and wide. There's culture, there's communication, there's a lot of aspects of diversity, and creating an inclusive workplace or an environment where everybody can thrive with parity, I think it's going to take a decade.
Yes, certainly. And I think, but for sure, Divya, things are changing. There is an increased amount of inclusivity coming up. But one point I think you said, very interesting, which caught my attention, is a faster growth or accelerated growth. So now I wanted to bring about this faster and accelerated growth perspective. Matt, you kind of earlier, you mentioned about the balance between the Indian ecosystem, how Chennai is becoming a SaaS world versus Silicon Valley. You have taken a very good example in explaining that. So wanted to know your perspective, that how the growing at any cost philosophy, is that something which you see between these two ecosystems as well, or your views are different?
I mean, what we see, just working with different startups in India as well as over here, we realize growing at any cost, but like Dr. Divya mentioned and Dr. Asif mentioned, there is a balance. We're looking at culture fit. We're looking at, that there's a value creation that we look at, right? And so, yes, growth is very important, but there's also a mission related factor, which is equally important. So if you look at most startups over here, even the big ones like Facebook, we call it a startup, but everybody is driven by a mission. Even within the matrix organizations, every group, every leader has a mission which they align with, the whole team aligns with. So there is an alignment of values and mission. So growth is very important. No mistake about it. People will do whatever it takes to grow. But as an entrepreneur, it's very important to be mission driven, to make sure that the value that you are creating is impacting people's lives in a positive manner. And I think if you come with that perspective, it brings in the whole idea of persuasion, of commitment, persistence. All of that falls in line because you're deep inside, you're coming from a very specific perspective that I want to make this a mission. I want to make a difference in people's lives. And I think that will also help you uncover the value of your product or service that you're providing. So I think, yeah, definitely growth is very important.
Yeah, excellent. I mean, I think those are excellent words. But again, I picked up something here. Mission driven is what the keyword I picked up from your statement, Matt. This reminds me, or this drives me to take the next question to Hardeep, because I think he is really mission driven. So wanted to know your perspective, Hardeep, when we are driving this mission driven, very niche area, trying to look at a particular segment of entrepreneurs, or do you feel that this mission driven has challenges, or would like to know your perspective that if there are, how do you overcome those challenges if there are any, and then how you see your views that how we can possibly solve those kind of challenges.
Sure. Thank you, Santosh. Great question and great comment earlier from Matt. I think mission and purpose and vision are critical to every single entrepreneur's success. It's not enough anymore to just want to earn great money and become an entrepreneur. There's got to be a driving force. I think in entrepreneurship, the competition now in entrepreneurship is phenomenal. So there's got to be something about you that's different. And I think, you're absolutely right. My background is financial services. I've worked in hedge funds. I've been chasing money for most of my life. And when this little boy was born, and I realized that my bank balance is not going to be able to reverse his brain damage, that was the point that I realized I have a different mission and a different purpose in life. And that is how I realized that I wanted to build a business now that has got social impact, right? A lot of companies think about, we're on the verges of the P's, right? A lot of companies think about profit first, people second, purpose third. Okay, I'll say that again. They think profit first, people second, purpose third, right? What we are trying to do is help people to begin to think purpose first, people second, and profit will become third. Okay, it's going to work. When you have a social impact, or you're focusing on ESG investing, which is what all these big organizations are doing now, environmental, social, governance, what's the impact? This is what people are focusing on. They're focusing on how we're going to impact the community as well as make money. So that's very, very important. So mission purpose is critical, but here's the thing you have to be careful about, right? So, and I've learned this firsthand from my own experience with my son. You can be overly passionate about an idea and overly emotional about an idea to the point that you actually don't see sense anymore. You become so dogmatic, you become so stubborn that you think, I'm doing this for my son, no matter what I do, I'm going to make it work. But actually, sometimes you have to be surrounded by people in entrepreneurship, especially, that you can bounce ideas off of that will help you to realize that actually, don't be so tunnel vision. Maybe you have to pivot. Maybe you have to change. So Kaleidoscope investments used to all be about investing in people that were disabled. Now it's about recruitment. And I didn't want to go into recruitment, but we had to pivot because I realized that in over the 1,000 disabled people that I'd met, right, that still wasn't enough to convince external investors. So I had to think about changing and pivoting. So I think my one word, or my one key that I'd love people to think about that are listening in, is don't be afraid to pivot in business, because sometimes you can be over emotional about your purpose and lose sight and direction. So you still have to maintain that sensibility check by probably being surrounded by people that will help to make sure that you don't begin to sink. So that's what I would say to that, Santosh.
No, I think two powerful things here. One is pivot. Don't be more attached than what it is required. And I wanted to know maybe Paul's perspective here, because the VCs are always seeing that the people who drive the profit. But what Hardeep said is that keep profit at the third point, if I remember the number. So quick 30-second view from Pawan, that do you something you are seeing in real world that you are okay to work on a mission-driven startup where the profit is coming as next? Is this an okay trend? Is it an acceptable trend for the VC?
Yeah, quickly, couple of points. Divya spoke about risk capital. I think it is extremely important, especially in emerging startup ecosystems. Because see, if you look into the VC investing, once a certain stage startup reaches, you see that a lot of money chases the startup because they see multiples there. It is fine, right? When business comes with a successful business model, it can benefit a larger population. Definitely, we need VC money, which aims to multiply, and it need to reach every part of the world. Eventually it is also solving some problem or addressing some need. The real challenge comes is if the VCs come downwards and start capturing this risk capital stage as well. This is where many startups tend to not get funded. And secondly, we are sort of excluding a large chunk of individuals with disposable incomes, which could eventually turn into angel investing, right? If you go to LinkedIn, you will see that if you run a survey, 80% of the people will tell you they wanted to be entrepreneurs, but they could not do it. But they love to be associated with a startup or entrepreneurship. So these are the guys whom the early stage startups should turn to raise the funding, not go to the institutional investors, even if they're coming downwards to look at them, because they don't bring value. They only bring money, and they are looking for short-term or whatever, medium-term gains. But the real value will come if you are able to associate with people who have some domain expertise, network, and some very passionate and emotional attachment to what you're doing, and they put you on the right direction. So that's very, very important. So while these ecosystems are maturing, the bigger risk is you start losing angels. Like 7-8 years ago, when I started investing, I could sign a smaller check, but today the entrepreneur's ambition is so high. I mean, those smaller checks have become irrelevant even in Indian markets, which I fear will not really help the ecosystem. So that's very important. Second thing is, I think, social purpose. I think this is one question I ask every founder. What's your bigger purpose of doing this? If I don't hear any social purpose, I don't fund it. Because I tell him, like, everything happens the way you expect, the way you imagine. What do you want to do? How do you want to give back? And when somebody does not have a compelling story, unfortunately, I don't really resonate with that. So I think what's really important, while all these ecosystems, everything, individuals are coming into entrepreneurship, and risk capital is coming in, angel investors are coming in. I think there are certain fundamentals which really need to remain and retain to keep these ecosystems growing. For example, if startup ecosystem in India has to go beyond tier 1, tier 2 cities into tier 3 cities, I mean, VCs or even funds are not going to go there. It is eventually those individuals who have some disposable income with angel investing becoming an asset class. Those are the guys who are going to take the risk, go and involve themselves, even in startups like disability, what Hardeep said. Funds don't really go there. So I think we need to continuously, sort of nurture and mature these different segments of the ecosystem. And that's where it becomes a long-term sustainability. Rather than it is just the craze of multiplying money, which really need to stop.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's a great perspective, Pawan. The social.
Can I just say, Santosh, what everyone's saying? I just wanted to come in on here. I always tell both my students and my kids, Beatles didn't go out to make money. They went to play great music. So you've got to, whatever you do it for others, and it's a byproduct that you will do well from it. I've never worked in my life. I've always had 7 figures or I don't know, very big sums paid as an employee or as So I would just say to people, find your purpose and then have an obsession to make it happen. Be a finisher. You got to finish things. I could have I registered the company in 2016, but I couldn't really work on it because I was trying to finish the medical school. So complete it, then do things. And any great things takes time. Moderna didn't start during pandemic. It started 10 years ago. Now it has a market cap of half of AstraZeneca. So
yeah. So that's very very valid point. Purpose, and then I think that's a great line there. Beetle did not do Beetle did not do the music.
People didn't go to make money; they went to play great music.
Can I just, Santosh, may I just say something very, very quickly, just linking on from Asif and also what Pavan said. The first thing is, when I put profit third, I didn't mean profit third as in profit is not important, right? I meant profit third exactly as Asif just said, is that if you have your purpose first and you have the right people second, you will make profit third, right? So that's the way I meant it. And the other thing about Pavan, which I 100% agree with, is we as entrepreneurs should not be obsessed by just getting money from venture capitalists, right? They are not the only funders in the world today. There are masses of people, as Pavan said, there are small time people that have made good money that will not just inject capital, but can inject mentoring and expertise and networks. And this is something that people need to think differently about. So, I'm really big on venture philanthropy now in the disability and diversity space. So that is venture, right? You do want a return, but philanthropy in that you don't need to have 10x or 20x. You'd be happy with 2 or 3x. So there are different funding models that we need to think about as investors in this world today as well, that are not purely just VC.
Yeah. So I think
Divya wants to say something.
The profit.
I'm just going to add to that below profit, I'm going to put an aspect of another P, that is peace of mind. Come on, guys, all you startups, community and entrepreneurs there. Don't forget that, yes, once you make your profit, how much is going to be enough? What is going to cost you your mental health? Be emotionally well, and that making peace is very important with yourself. Just that.
Love that. Thank you, Divya.
Yeah, beautiful. So now I think we have a very powerful panel here who have accomplished leaders in their own field. Would certainly like to take some takeaway for Indian entrepreneurs or Indian startup owners. So if I can ask this one message which you want to drive to the Indian startup owners or entrepreneurs or to be entrepreneurs, like say who are sitting on the fence and then trying to see should I or should not I take that step. Would like to know your perspective that what could be the message for Indian entrepreneurs. So Srinath, since you come with a lot of experience in that area, so I'd like to start with your views. Yeah, Srinath might have some issues. So maybe we can start with Dr. Asif again. What could be the message for Indian entrepreneurs and startup owners?
Yeah. Oops. Am I okay? Yeah, sure. I think when you find other people's pain point, so be useful, but be unique, because a lot of if you're going into, I like to think of going into white space, like so white space territory you'll be very unique, or maybe you have to struggle a bit at the beginning, but you have the market share. And then think of your strategy, how you're going to build that market share. And don't think local, just think people are people around the planet. If you have a problem, you're solving a problem in your place, they're going to have that problem globally. So think globally. And then again, I use the internet. Let people know who you are and what you're doing and what you stand for. So that's really important. And that inclusivity and diversity is so important. Today I can say that our Prime Minister, the second person in command of our government, the third person in command of our government, and the health secretary, all three look like me, right? Which country can say that? That's what United Kingdom has been able to achieve. And that's what makes us very diverse. And maybe America is one exception to that. But till the rest of the world thinks like that, Silicon Valley will be Silicon Valley. Boston will be Boston. And Europe will not be what United Kingdom is going to be. So I'll stop it. But India needs to think that way.
Yeah, that's a great message there. If you could ask the same question to say Matt, since you have a lot of experience between both Silicon Valley and India, what would be that one message or one suggestion to the Indian entrepreneurs and startup owners?
So I'd just say, from early entrepreneurs in India struggle with sustainability, finding funding. There was a period where getting funding became the news and the goal, right? That, okay, this is success. But what I'm saying now is, what I'm seeing now actually is that go after creating value. You have the global stage for yourself. Funding is available, but think of creating value. There was a time when we were thinking of jugaad, paisa kaise banega, how do we make money, right? Entrepreneurs were motivated by that, jugaad kar lenge, that is changing, and there was a reason for that. That is changing. So keep on that path. Think in terms of how you are going to change the world. Align that with your team, with your mission. Money is available locally, globally, and that has changed from the pandemic time. So think big. You have the ability and the resources to think big, which you didn't have up till now. So I understand that. But now think big of how you're going to create impact, create value, and be on the global stage.
That's very powerful advice. Hardeep, your views on advising to the young entrepreneurs from India, what you would go for?
So the two things I would say to our entrepreneurs in India is, the first thing is similar to what's just been said already, is that the world is accessible. So don't be afraid to reach out to people to ask for help. Okay, so even though I'm based in the UK, I get a lot of messages from Indian entrepreneurs that want to start businesses, which is fantastic, right? So don't be afraid to reach out to people. And just because they're they're big names or big people, it doesn't mean they won't respond. We're all humans at the end of the day, right? So don't be afraid to do that. And the second thing is for those organizations that want to do something in the disability space, and this is real examples because I've seen this over the last 7 or 8 months, make sure you build a team that is diverse, okay? Because there's a lot of people that may want to be doing things in the disability space, but they don't actually get anyone disabled that's on their team, right? So build your team representative to what your business is so that you have the in-house expertise to actually grow that company. So those would be my 2 tips, Santosh.
Awesome. So Divya, if I ask you the same question, what would be your advice? You being an investor, an entrepreneur by yourself, so what would be your advice?
Well, I'm going to just put it in a professional setting and a personal setting. In a professional setting, of course, what is an investor looking for? Investors look for opportunity and traction. And you can understand both of these. There's enough information available. We need to create more value inflection points in our journey. And everybody is talking about this word value. So create more value in what you do, link it to your commitment and passion. And on the personal front, I'm going to be leaving you all with a quote that I said back in my Miss India days as a finalist, and that actually won me one of the Miss Congeniality titles. So it goes something like this, that there will never be another now. I will make the most of today. There will never be another me. I will make the most of myself. Believe in that and realize every minute so that you can cherish it forever.
That is very powerful message. Very powerful message. I think that's good enough to think for next 1 week, I guess. So, Srinath, if I can ask the same question to you, what would be your advice to Indian entrepreneurs and the startup owners, or to be entrepreneurs? What would be your take?
Thanks, Santosh. And I know definitely right from Dr. Asif, Divya, and Pawan, they all shared a very, very insightful messages. But recently, I was just talking to one of mentor from the US side, and he was telling actually one point he told me, how entrepreneurs should look out is that he says that entrepreneurs should get out of their wall and go out in the market and talk to people and tell them that what I'm doing actually, is it a thing you can accept or not? If you don't accept, fine, I'll go back and again I'll come back out of the wall. That's what he was telling that every entrepreneur should do. And one of our panel speaker told the commitment actually it should be in a long term. It has to be a long-term commitment in terms of not like a decade commitment or something. In a commitment actually which gives a lot of that all the speakers mentioned that mission. The long-term commitment, the mission is achieved and the purpose is driven and it's met. The goal is achieved. Actually, one thing which I feel, most of the entrepreneurs should learn the T3 principle. That the task, tangible, and traction. If they can learn these three, absolutely brilliant for entrepreneurs to go out and do something. Lastly, I say entrepreneurs should contribute to the problem solving. That is one of the area which they have to create in a solid impact to their own society or outside world also. These are the 4 things which I look at. Definitely, first point, I'm very, very interesting to know how entrepreneurs go out of their wall and do something in the market.
Excellent, Srinath. Thank you so much. And then I would not leave Pawan before he shares his, because I know he has very valuable input for our Indian entrepreneurs and the startup.
So Santosh, I mean, all of us keep watching a lot of ecosystems globally, right? I mean, you're also associated with Europe, and I off late I got really interested in Africa because there's so much of news coming out from there. So I got involved there with a couple of accelerators and all. So here is the thing, right? If you look into Indian entrepreneurship, right, there are advantages and disadvantages. The disadvantage is any global startup can easily plug into India because we are culturally and even in terms of heavy service oriented workforce, our global alignment is quite high compared to any other markets or any other ecosystems. Like Africa is not as aligned as us. China is not aligned. Though China is a huge powerhouse, you cannot take a Spotify and plug into China. Similarly, you cannot take Spotify and plug into Middle East, but you can easily plug into India. So it just takes 24 hours for Spotify to come into India, do blast of Google ads, and they're there. They start their business. So that's a huge disadvantage. At the same time, entrepreneurship should take it as an advantage. We are far more globally aligned than any other ecosystem. What it really means is if you have some idea, if you have the nerve, if you have the skills, if you have the commitment and all those things we talked about, I mean, we are best placed to go global compared to any other ecosystem. If you look into any of the other ecosystem, they are just trying to remain culturally aligned, whether it is Africa, Middle East, China and all, and serve the local consumptions. Whereas India has a huge, huge potential. Now, I just don't want to stop at potential. I also want to say responsibility, because we have the largest young population the world ever has seen, and such a very well aligned, educated, equipped population, and at the right time, when the world is going through so many dissimilarities and problems, right? And this is a great opportunity. And if this young population entrepreneurs, if we cannot exploit this and take advantage of it, I mean, it's a great injustice to the next generations, and also to elevate the entire economy of the country. I think that's where Indian entrepreneurship should also feel responsible and take every risk and be bold. Obviously, should come with all that preparation we spoke about. This, I don't want to repeat all that, but again, do all that good homework and come and amaze the world. And this is our time to do it.
Awesome. Awesome. This is so motivating, Pawan. It's absolutely brilliant set of insights from all of you. I think if I were 25, 26 now, I think I would have started one more startup by listening to this such an inspirational stories from all of you. I wish this platform was there when I was growing up in the college. I think this is absolutely brilliant, motivating points from all of you. So we are hearing a lot of great insights about entrepreneurship, about innovation, about India story, tips to the entrepreneurs, and then I think we can go on until end of the day, you guys, or tomorrow morning for us in this part of the world. But would like to see some closing remarks about all we discussed. We would like to start with Hardeep. Any closing comments from you about what all we discussed?
No, actually, Santosh, I kind of agree with what you just said. I think this is a phenomenally well put together panel. I think there have been some really, really good comments from people that have commented today. And I think for those people that are listening, if you listen to all the advice that's been placed by different people, it's very, very similar. We're all saying similar things, but we're just saying them in different ways. So I suppose my closing remark would be that, as an entrepreneur, I think it's sensible in life to get some employment history, do something in the work environment first, get a job, understand what it's like having a job, and then become an entrepreneur, because then you can see the best of both worlds. You'll learn something from that experience, but don't be afraid. I think the world is our oyster, and I think it's really worth taking a chance. So, as long as you have that mission and you have that purpose and you have that drive and vision, then don't be afraid. The opportunity is better now than it's ever been before. And thank you for listening as well.
Yeah, that's a great closing remark. Dr. Asif, any closing remarks from your side?
Yeah, I would also say, find yourself an extraordinary mentor. So I say, to be extraordinary, find and adopt an extraordinary mentor. Don't expect mentors to come to you. You have to go and find them and chase them. And most people, as Hardeep was saying, if you ask for help, people will give you help. And as what Pavan was saying about India, India has huge potential. It's multicultural, it's multilingual. It's got 2,000 languages, I was told, and I was talking to the first secretary of Hyderabad or Telangana, and he was telling me India is 28 countries. It's during the oxygen crisis, we were trying to help, and I had him on a Clubhouse and to give first-hand view of what's happening there. We were trying to fundraise for it. So, and do as people have said, find your purpose and get experience, and nothing happens so quickly. So, build a team around the things that you're not good at. I talk about 3 things: team, idea, and timing. You need an absolutely extraordinary team, unique idea built on data, and finally, you need to be in the right place at the right time. Timing is really important. And COVID, for better or worse, has put us in a very unique position. Health sector is seen by governments, don't think of health as health only, they think of as national security. And that's what's changing the goalpost. US is giving money to companies who have never made a vaccine so that they can produce, so giving upfront. So investors need to think in that way as well. So to make a commitment on the jockey, not on the project.
Yeah, great. Mentoring reminds me about Srinath, because I know he's working with a lot of startups as a mentoring. Srinath, your comments, final closing remarks from your side.
Yeah, Santosh, my closing remark, one, actually, I remember a very old movie, Coming to America, Eddie Murphy's movie. He says, as soon as he lands in America, he opens his arm and he says, the vast opportunity in US. So there's a big opportunity in India, definitely. It's definitely in the growing story. And just if you go back a decade or 2 decades, we were not in the growing story in terms of anything we will do. But definitely we have opened the doors. And as you said, I'm really missing the platform of 25 years. I mean, like the age of the 25 years, I would have been here. I would have taken all the panel, actually mentor for a day, and then, nurtured with them and moved. So vast opportunity. India has got a great story, definitely. And one last message is that India has shown actually in this pandemic period what we can do. In a diversified country, diversified culture, what we can do, we have shown. I think we will show, and we keep showing, actually, definitely. Thank you, Santosh.
Yeah, all right. Matt, your perspective, closing remarks.
Don't be afraid to fail. That's one thing which I must tell the entrepreneurs in India, because that's a mindset thing. And I somewhat disagree with some of the comments in terms of the age related stuff. I think it's a mindset. There's nothing like you have to be below a certain age, or we should have been around. We are still here, and it's happening now. So there's nothing which restricts us from doing entrepreneurship. And age is just a mindset. So don't be afraid to fail, and just, it's your time, go shine. India is shining, and I think this is the time. So just don't be afraid to fail. That's one thing.
I think this is very powerful, Matt. The reason is because we are all taught how to celebrate the success, but we don't know how to handle the failure. I mean, I think this is very, very important thing, because don't afraid the failure. Was talking to the other panelist, Monish from iCertis. He said that India provides you a best opportunity to fail, because you are failing at much less cost. So it's
that's what Silicon Valley does. The one thing about difference is you are not judged for failure. It's okay. People will say, yeah, so okay, yeah, you did a startup, you did this, okay, no problem. No one judges you that you will not be successful for them. And that's why most people and most successful entrepreneurs have failed at least 3 to 4 times in Silicon Valley before they hit it right. So that's one thing which India never allowed earlier, because we had a certain system of, when right from school days, But I think that is changing now. Change that mindset. I mean, go out, go and do it.
Matt, I just want to say, Indian president Abdul Kalam Azad, I think he said, fail stands for first attempt in learning. So I say, fail early, learn fast. So India has been saying this, but some people haven't followed it.
It's coming true. Now it's changing, but that's the biggest mindset change I must submit to the panel and to the entrepreneurs.
Great. That's really beautiful. Divya, you were closing comments.
Firstly, thank you, Santosh and Srinath, for giving me this opportunity. I've got to know and expand my network and be inspired by all the other fellow panelists. And I think I'm going to go back to work tomorrow believing that I can fail more, I can do more, I can dream more, and I can be more. So that's what my biggest key takeaway from this session. And let me also inspire all the youngsters who are watching that if you are planning to be a startup or you're already a startup and you're planning to scale up, the solution is in building capacity. So think about it and, lots of food for thought. Be safe and keep smiling. Thank you.
Awesome. Pawan and David, for your final remarks before we say thank you to everyone.
Well, my final remark, I think I said it already. Very quickly, in 2 sentences, I feel like the generation educated, especially the education, I agree with Matt, age is a concept. The educated generation in India has a huge responsibility because we see a lot of gap in terms of affordability, economics, everything between. We still have a large population which needs to see good day in their life. And I feel like it is a responsibility. It is not just about opportunity, but it is also a responsibility so that, we work hard in this generation. If you look into 90s and, 2000s, 80s, Narayan Murthy, Azim Premji, they all worked hard to create a huge ecosystem and a big business line of IT products and services. I think this generation has a responsibility to create this startups and ecosystem so that the wealth and opportunities go right deep into the rural parts of India, and we see complete upliftment. And I think we should look at it as a responsibility and do our few cents to alleviate that.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
I want to thank you, Santosh and Srinath, for putting this panel together. Thanks a lot for the great panelists. Amazing content. I learned a lot today about Indian startup venture system. Our goal is to connect Austin and Silicon Valley with global different ecosystem. I really hope we can team up to bring more Indian companies to either Austin or Silicon Valley, or reversely help more American companies landed in India. That's create more opportunity and values for the ecosystem player. I just want to thank you all for being part of this great panel today.
Thanks, David. My last message before we close. Thanks, David and Pawan. It was a great journey from last so many days. Actually, morning and evening we were interacting and great support, especially David. And today I'm really excited connecting with all of you, right from Dr. Asif and Matt and Hardeep and everyone, Dr. Divya. It was an exciting evening. Definitely, David, it was a great moment.
Thank you all.
Great. So thank you so much, each and everyone, for spending almost 1.5 hours, more than 1.5 hours with us. It's a great and exciting content, as David said. I really appreciate your time. And thank you so much, Srinath, for arranging this everything. David and Pawan, thank you so much for the opportunities. And I think we got an opportunity to demonstrate the growing ecosystem of India. And then again, I would like to thank you everyone for their views, and I must compliment for the great journey you are having more power to all of you. Look forward to interact with you, learn with you, and collaborate with you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Santosh. Very nice being with you all in Spring Up. And thanks to all of you, and be happy and be safe.